Shudder Sunday. If you are not familiar with us, we are Fear and Beer. We're a Halloween Horror Nights podcast and a little bit of horror movies. So if this is your first time discovering us on YouTube, congrats, you found us. This is an exclusive just to YouTube. But if you are interested in any of the other stuff, check us out on any of your podcast listening services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that, Fear and Beer. So this is the introduction of this this fun little series we got going on. So Shudder Sundays, we're going to bring a little 5 to 10 minute review of a Shudder movie. Every Sunday, just going to be random. If you have suggestions, let us know in the comments. But we decided to kick it off first with Popcorn.
Yes.
Slasher.
1991.
Style.
Yeah.
Slasher-ish.
Right.
They tried to dip their toes into that meta world and a little bit of that paranormal world is weird. This is a weird little pick for them. But this was directed by Mark Harrier, who was best known for his acting role in Porky's. This was his only directorial installment. This was originally supposed to be done by Bob Clark, who directed Black Christmas and Christmas Story. But it got passed around a little bit and somehow ended up into Mark's lap. So do you want to do a little... We'll do a little synopsis of the movie. We're going to give you the Shudder rating, and then we're going to go into some good and bad stuff that we thought on this movie.
So essentially the little plot I'm going to be reading, there is a lot, so I'm not going to read all of it to do too many spoilers, but film student and aspiring screenwriter Maggie Butler has recurring dreams of a young girl named Sarah who is caught in a fire and chased by a strange man who is trying to kill her. Maggie lives with her mother Suzanne, who's played by Dee Wallace, who has been receiving demonic prank calls. On her way to class, Maggie shuns the advance of her boyfriend Mark, explaining that she can't be distracted from writing her script. Essentially, Maggie's been having these dreams of this strange man following her in her dreams, all this different kind of stuff, and she's been waking up and doing audio recordings of what she's been dreaming to try and turn it into her own film. She's in film school. Maggie's classmate, Toby D'Amato, has an idea to put on an all-night horror movie marathon to raise funds for the university's film department. And let me tell you, they must have had a huge budget, because what they did with this was, they went all out.
With 5 kids?
With like 5 kids, with like 5 of them, like...
One in a wheelchair.
Yeah, one in a wheelchair, so they're very diverse, which is good. They set up the shop in the defunct Dreamland Theater, which is to be raised in 3 weeks. Professor Davis is concerned about the time constraints, but Toby enlists the help of Dr. Minsine, an owner of a film memorabilia shop, with deploying promotional gimmicks.
Played by, and I forget his actual name, but Mr. Hand from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes, Nick pointed that out when we watched it.
I was waiting for Spicoli to drop by.
There are 3 main films within a film: Mosquito in 3D, The Attack of the Amazing Electrified Man using Shockoscope, which in the film they shock the seats of the theater patrons. Little
predatation of 4DX.
Yeah, and then another one called, I've said The Mosquito in 3D, but then another one was The Stench, which uses odorama, which fills the theater with stench. As they go through Dr. Minsine's trunks of equipment, they find a short cult film called Possessor, which greatly resembles Maggie's dreams. Davis informs them that Lanyard Gates, the film's director, killed his own family while shooting the final scene before setting the theater on fire, trapping the audience inside. Maggie soon becomes obsessed with Possessor and tries to figure out why she's been dreaming about it. When she asks her mother if she has heard of Gates or Possessor, Suzanne becomes uncomfortable. She urges Maggie to quit the festival and wants them to go away together. After Maggie goes to bed, Suzanne receives another prank call from someone she believes to be Gates. He tells her to meet her at the Dreamland so they can talk and advises her to bring a gun. Which, I don't know if he was ready for a face-off to begin with, but yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep reading a little bit more of the plot? Or?
I think that kind of sums up the
I don't
gist of this movie.
I don't want to give away too much of it.
So Shudder ranked this 4 out of 5 skulls collective. So
Pretty
interesting.
good.
Yeah. So let's get the good stuff out of the way first.
Yeah.
So a couple things that I made note of was I thought the practical effects in this were really cool.
They were cool.
And obviously we're going to be talking spoilers, so there's your warning right there. But the practical makeup and the masks at the end, when the whole switcheroo reveal comes and his yellow eyes and torn out burnt
they
face,
were so good.
They did a really good job in that aspect. For me, I love the setting. I'm a theater nut. I love that old school, that old timey, let's go to the lobby.
Yeah.
I love that aesthetic. So that was really cool. It primarily took place just in the theater. You know, the first couple scenes leading up to it were, you know, at the college's auditorium and stuff like that, but it primarily takes place just in this theater, and it allows them to use a lot of cool different props and sets and stuff like that. I liked the theater gags. You hit on it a little bit. I did like the inclusion of like the shocking seats and this odometer or whatever, odorama, and they gave out little like stench cloggers just for the patrons. But I thought that was cool. I'm sure they had aspects of that with 3D back in the 90s as well, but I know today is more elevated. You know, they actually have the 40X theaters, so they really like, this really predated that one. I liked the accurate theater kids. As a film student myself, I can tell you that all of these very uniquely absurd, bizarre, just Land of Misfit Toys kids is very, very accurate. I mean, in college, I had this kid down the hall from me who, like, had his door open and he would make masks, and it was just, he left shit everywhere, and he was just disheveled and just a fucking weirdo. But yeah, I mean, that's theater kids. That's the film, that is the film program. So while most people looking at this from the outside in would be like, it just seems like an odd collection. It's like, no, that is the collection.
Exactly.
Those are the people that exist in that realm. But that's my kind of good. Do you have any, what's your good on the list that may not have been mentioned already?
Like you were saying, so I've actually watched this before. This was my pick for the Shudder week because I had a feeling that Nick would really enjoy it, and hopefully he did as much as I did. But like you had touched on it with the masks that, a little bit of spoilers, but the masks that Toby uses that he molds from these people's faces after he kills them, and he switches them out to look like the different actors and actresses in the movies, the different characters in the movies. For being in 1991 and the transitions that, I mean, it's still not too far off, but like the transitions that they did and the makeup effects and special effects, it literally looks like they pasted that actor actress's face on his face just with the different little wax melts and different little masks that he made and stuff like that. I just thought that was really fun. I thought it was really cool. I was like, these effects are actually really, really good. He looks just like them. And I really like the whole like schlocky, gimmicky theater feel, as Nick was saying as well. I really like the mosquito attack in 3D or whatever it was. They had the giant fake mosquito flying down across the theater over the zip line, which I thought was really fun. Just like little aspects like that. And of course, we got some bigger names in it, like Nick had mentioned before. The doctor was from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And then Dee Wallace, of course, watching it for the first time. Yeah, watching it for the first time, I didn't even realize it was her. She looked so different. She had shorter hair then, but I feel like the actor choices that they picked for this was really well. For what the movie was and the budget that they hit, I think they executed it really well also.
So any other good? That's all? We're good on good?
I'm trying to think of it. I should have done a little more preparation for this. Good. But I was just going to say, I was like, I've seen it before. I know what I'm going to talk about. But yeah, I think that's from what I like to tell with the top of my head.
All right, let's get into the bad. Stuff that I had to nitpick a little bit. The acting was terrible.
I wouldn't say terrible.
I would say terrible. I just didn't, and that falls into the line of my next bad, was that
they tried a little too hard, I could say.
Yeah, and they were, for me, I know I mentioned earlier, they were quirky, but they were very unmemorable.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of their names.
No, I don't either.
I just didn't believe them as actors, and I don't think the script was really there to perform and play off of either. So I just, for me, that was a swing and a miss. The blend of Supernatural, hated it. If you're going to be like a sort of meta slasher, don't simply give us one supernatural aspect and then never explain it, because there's one scene where the mother goes to the theater and the entire marquee just turns off, turns on, changes, the lights go out, and then all the letters fall off
and are ripped off,
and it spells out Possessor, which was the movie that in the beginning killed the killer, which it killed him and his mother. Didn't really kill him, but that was the name of the movie that kind of kick-started his revenge tour. So that aspect never played out. That was the only supernatural aspect into it. And it almost gave him like a ghost-like villain feel, and it's not that kind of movie.
And it wasn't wasn't like it was put back up like the marquee letters spelled out possessor. It was just like really shitty like possessor, like highlighted on there, like projected on there.
It came on and came off.
I was like, they did all that, exploded all the bulbs, ripped out all the things. They could have at least put it back up there. But
so yeah, that kind of was a bad part. And the last little bad part for me is this is just another 90s slasher. This was that lost era of slashers. The 80s have already been, done and done over again and again and again. So this is where we have that slasher fatigue in cinema history. This is before Scream comes around and rejuvenates the franchise a little bit. But it just kind of falls into that category where it just gets lost because it's honestly just not that memorable. Do you have any other bad moments that stick out to you, or bad just overall things?
I really didn't have too many bad moments ultimately because I really like this film. Honestly, I hadn't heard of it before until I saw it on Shudder one day, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. And other than some of the characters not being very memorable in that sense, I do like the whole lost film, found footage kind of thing that they did. They're bringing the film back to life. Apparently, Lanyard Gates is still alive, or is he alive? Is it someone else who's taking over his spot? All that kind of stuff. So I really like those aspects of it too. I didn't really have too much to hate on it about it, except the first couple opening scenes. I thought the acting was a little bit bad in that. When she's having to banter back and forth with her boyfriend at the school and stuff like that, when they're on the field and all that kind of stuff. Not that great.
Not great. Sorry. I will actually, before we move on to the next part, I do have two more quick little goods. I did enjoy the films within a film.
Yes.
I thought that those were very fun theming. And they did a good job with fun kills.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot, and it wasn't crazy, over the top, like gory, whatever, but they were just very fun, ingenuitive. You have the mosquito kill.
Yep.
You have the kid in the electric chair getting his whole chair electrocuted and like going off on the system.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very fun moment. So let's get into our top moment. What is if you had to pick one moment, what is that moment from this film?
Honestly, it's probably going to go along with the best kill as well for the film, because I feel like one of the more memorable moments was the scene where he gets electrocuted to death in the chair and zaps up the whole, basically, essentially, the
whole console.
The whole console. I don't want to spoil too much, but
I'll spoil
the person. Oh, okay. I was just going to
point.
say, Toby, who everyone thought was Lanyard Gates' first, but Toby was actually a boy in the theater watching the show at the time. They set the theater on fire. He escaped, his mother died, so now Toby's back with vengeance, posing as this high school student, all this kind of stuff, or this college student in the film, trying to bring Maggie, aka Sarah, back to the theater to try and refinish the film Possessor that wasn't finished. So essentially, Toby, what he does is he hooks up, and see, that's the thing when you said the characters on the memorable. I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
Don't know his name.
But the student that was in the wheelchair, he basically hooks him up to like jumper cables and then attaches it to like the soundboard or the kind of stuff like that, to where all the electrical chairs are going off in the audience and stuff like that. And once those start going off, it electrocutes the kid to death and pretty much zaps him. And then he shoots back in the wheelchair and then disappears out of nowhere pretty much. I thought that was a really fun part.
So top moment for me was that final reveal when you got to see his yellow eyes, the stapled head. I really liked the aesthetics on that. So that's my top moment.
They made it look really good, honestly.
Yeah. So you said that your best kill would be the wheelchair electrocution.
That one, but also just because it's so ridiculous, and like I said, these college kids must have had an outstanding budget to do some of the shit that they did. The mosquito kill scene was great, because I don't know why they decided to make
that sharp
long nose or whatever you would call it on a mosquito super sharp. The beak, super sharp, to where you could literally penetrate through someone. And it did, and it was pretty great.
That is my best kill.
Yeah.
Is the mosquito
that was a good
prop
one.
through the sternum. So before we jump off, we are going to give you our fear and beer ratings. So if you are not familiar with us, our fear and beer ratings are 2. So our fear rating is 1 through 5 on how scary this film is. And our beer rating is how fun this film is on a scale of 1 through 5 as well. So what is your fear rating for this?
My fear rating for how scary it would be I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Okay. So my fear one is a 1, and that's a very generous one. Generous one. It's not scary. It's a very campy, schlocky, early 90s slasher.
Right.
So it's not scary. So your beer rating, 1 through 5, how much did you enjoy this film? Or 0. 0 through 5. I guess you can do a 0.
I'm going to give this a 5.
A 5 out of 5? We're starting this series with a 5.
I really enjoyed this film, and now I recommend it, and I have a couple friends who post about it as well that I work with on other projects and stuff like that who really enjoy this too. And I'm like, I'm glad I'm not the only one, which makes me happy. I just really like, it's like you said, it's like the 90s like slasher kind of campy style, but I feel like it uses a different setting and different scenario that we haven't seen before. I know you kind of said it intertwines like the meta a little bit, similar to how they do in Scream and stuff like that. But like I mentioned before, I really like that it was more focused on finishing a lost film that didn't get to be finished before, and them trying to finish that film, and the whole movie film fest with the classic movies that they were playing and all that kind of stuff. I just really loved that whole feel. I just really thought it just made it so much fun.
Yeah. So my beer rating, I'll give this a 2.5.
What?
Right in the middle. It's fine. It's an average movie. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It balanced itself for me. I love the aesthetic, and I loved that cinema style, that film fest, really fun. But then like the story was just over the top, complicated. I'm sure you're lost at some of the stuff we're talking about because the story is just so convoluted, filled with just nonsense, unmemorable characters, and you get lost in it. So for me, a 2.5 on that. All right, well guys, thank you very much for joining us for our first ever Shudder Sunday. Check us out next week. We will be doing this again, and we will announce our episode. Whatever we're going to be watching, we will probably put on our podcast.
Yeah.
So if you are not already listening to us, Fear and Beer, we are a Halloween Horror Nights podcast, so go follow us, do all the things, like, subscribe, share, whatever, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. See you later.